In a dimly lit room on the outskirts of a bustling city, a group of four friends huddled around a table, laughter spilling into the air. They were confident, self-assured, believing that their wit and intellect could outsmart any game they played. But tonight, they were about to face a challenge that would twist their bravado into something else entirely. As the clock struck midnight, the friends pulled out a board game that had been collecting dust in an old box, the game of deceit. Unknown to the four of them, this game was more than just a test of strategy. It was a battleground for not just the mind, but the heart. With a flick of the wrist, the game was set. Each piece commanded attention, intricately designed to reflect the personalities of those who dared to play. Sarah, the self-proclaimed genius, smirked as she picked up the rules. Simple enough, folks. Her two friends, Mark and Jenna, exchanged glances, unimpressed but amused. Eventually, there was David, the quiet one, who often faded into the background while his friends basked in their intellect. Nevertheless, he nodded along, pretending to be engaged while he concocted a calculated plan of his own. They unfolded the rules, highlighting deception, betrayal, and, ironically, teamwork. The game required them to form alliances and then break them at opportune moments, trapping their opponents into illusions of safety. Naturally, the three friends felt emboldened by their cleverness and dismissed David's quiet demeanor. To them, he brought up the rear of the pack, and this was exactly where David wanted them to think he belonged. With the game underway, each turn brought with it a round of sly grins and laughter. Sarah quickly orchestrated a deceptive tactic that left Mark and Jenna reevaluating their choices. She taunted, her laughter echoing through the room. Their confidence began to shake. As the hours dragged on, with tension slinking into the corners, it became clear. Sarah led the charge, always one step ahead. But in the shadows lurked David, quietly watching, processing. He noticed every move, dissecting the alliances that were being formed with the precision of a surgeon. He watched as Mark, ever the overconfident strategist, sought to take down Sarah, convinced of his own cleverness. "Hey, Jenna, what if we band together?" Mark whispered, but the desperation in his eyes betrayed the bravado in his voice. Jenna nodded, but uneasiness crept across her features. She hesitated, awareness dawning too late. As the alliances solidified, David played the long game, setting his pieces in motion like a chess master engaging his opponent. He listened, he observed. He gathered information, and soon the air thickened with secrets and uncertainty. Then came the climactic moment. Mark and Jenna, emboldened by a false sense of superiority, moved to take out Sarah, believing they had her cornered. "Time to teach you a lesson," Mark declared, a grin plastered across his face. He revealed his cards, attempting to blindside her with a last-minute betrayal. But before they could revel in their perceived victory, David spoke up, his voice calm yet charged. A brief silence fell across the room. Confusion danced between the three friends. Sarah had already turned her attention to David, her laughter replaced by a simmering anger. In one swift moment, David moved his pieces, revealing a masterful counterattack that sent tremors through their smugness. He whispered, almost as if he was savoring the moment. The laughter faded, and for once he had everyone's attention. Their faces went pale as David explained his strategic play. Each piece was positioned to act like a time bomb, ready to go off and disrupt their plans in one grand. "I might be quiet, but I'm always 3 steps ahead," he added, a flicker of satisfaction lighting up his eyes. In that moment, the room pulsed with tension as the realization dawned on them. They had underestimated him, blinded by their arrogance. Jenna shook her head, disbelief etched on her features, while a sense of panic began to bubble within the others. Everything they thought they knew had been flipped on its head. As they looked at the board, it wasn't just pieces that were moving, it was the dynamics of their friendship. Each betrayal echoed, amplifying their insecurities and dwindling trust. What started as playful banter had morphed into a battle of wits rife with hidden agendas. But instead of despair, David felt a surge of electricity invigorate him. This was his moment. The quieter you are, the louder your actions speak. He pushed the game forward, eagerly anticipating how they would try to claw their way back into the lead. "That's the beauty of this game, isn't it?" David's words hung in the air like a demanding storm cloud. The group fell quiet, each wrestling with their pride as realization washed over them. The game pressed on, but it had shifted. Laughter turned to bitter conflict as each betrayal stung more than the last. The fun had been stripped away, now replaced with gritted teeth and fierce determination. And just when it seemed they might buckle under pressure, a sudden spark ignited. "Wait, let's just take a step back," Jenna suggested, trying to mend the rift. But in the perilous tightrope of competition, how could they go back to normal? In a game designed to exploit trust, the foundation of their friendship was beginning to crumble like brittle glass beneath the weight of their choices. But David had been watching. He noticed Sarah's unraveling strength, the way she suddenly seemed more vulnerable beneath her confident facade. His voice was low, almost soothing as she stared down at the board, her confidence wavering. I don't know, I thought I was smarter," Sarah admitted, the fight leaving her voice. It was a bitter pill to swallow. How had she allowed herself to be outmaneuvered? Perhaps in her quest to win, she had taken for granted the very alliance she thought would last. Mark spoke next, his tone harsh as he faced David. "You just got lucky." But deep down, he knew he was fabricating hope, fueled by the ashes of his shattered ego. David turned to him, calm and collected. Luck doesn't exist in this game, it's all a matter of perspective. He leaned in, eyes sparkling with an intensity that felt almost tangible. The atmosphere thickened once more. They all bore witness as the game morphed, becoming less about winning and more about understanding. Moments of vulnerability began replacing their bluster, creating a strange sense of empowerment. Maybe we should just try to enjoy this, Jenna suggested softly. Reluctantly, laughter began to filter back in, this time laced with honesty, a reminder that sometimes winning at a cost was no victory at all. David smiled. This was how sweet revenge tasted, not through destruction, but through revelation. They had played themselves into a circle of distrust, but he had emerged from the shadows. They learned that one could be clever, but it took true wisdom to realize that respect and trust were far more valuable than fleeting victories. Finally, the game drew to a close, but it was no longer about the pieces on the board. They put down their figurines, silencing their competitive spirits to reflect on what had unfolded. They rose from the table, and amidst the chaos of their game, they formed new bonds, fortified with understanding and humility. As they left the dimly lit room, still buzzing from the experience, David walked just a little taller. They might have thought they were smarter, but in a game of deceit, true mastery lay in recognizing that intelligence is nothing without integrity. The laughter faded into the night, echoing the profound changes that had shifted their perspective forever. It all started that rainy afternoon in late October, when the air was thick with tension and the dark clouds rolled over the skyline, casting a shadow over the city. Inside a cozy cafe, three friends gathered for what they thought would be just another casual hangout. But this afternoon was about to take a turn that none of them could have predicted. There was Alex, the confident one, always armed with witty comebacks and grand ideas. Then came Mia, the brilliant strategist. Her intellect often overshadowed the room as she dissected every problem with surgical precision. And finally, there was Ethan, the quiet one with a knack for reading between the lines. He often played the gag, sitting back and letting his friends think they had the upper hand. Over steaming cups of coffee, they delved into a game of wit and strategy that had become their tradition. This time, however, they added a twist. They decided to play a game of chess, but with an added element. Each player could pull one wild card from a mystery deck, turning the tide of the game completely. This twist unleashed a boundless number of possibilities, and the stakes seemed higher now than ever before. They set the pieces out on the board, the silence hanging between them like a taut wire. With a determined look, Alex opened the game with an aggressive opening move. "Prepare to get crushed, my friends," he declared, his confidence brimming. He was the self-proclaimed chess champion of their trio, boasting about his past victories, earning eye rolls from Mia and laughs from Ethan. As the game progressed, Mia began executing a strategy that brought her to the forefront. She carefully picked her pieces, maneuvering with the precision of a master. "Don't get too comfortable, Alex," she countered, a sly smile creeping onto her lips as she captured one of his knights. The atmosphere in the cafe shifted, tension weaving through the air like smoke. With every move, the playful banter became pulses of excitement, building until it felt like a taut string ready to snap. Ethan sat quietly, analyzing every move. He could feel the growing intensity bubbling within the space, almost like a storm brewing outside the cafe. While Alex and Mia were locked in their duel, he noticed something crucial. They were both underestimating him. They viewed him as the third wheel, the quiet observer, but he was the wildcard lurking in the shadows, ready to strike when the moment was right. As the game unfolded, the power dynamics shifted rapidly. What began as a friendly competition took on a darker tone, the friendly jabs turning sharp as underlying insecurities spilled into the open. Alex and Mia began to throw darts of cruel jests toward one another, their laughter gradually transforming into competitive snipes. "Nice move, but you're forgetting the part where you're still going to lose," Alex jabbed, leaning back in his chair, reveling in his perceived dominance. Mia narrowed her eyes, her posture rigid with determination. "Let's see where that confidence lands you," she replied, pushing her queen forward. The move was bold, daring like a spark thrown into firewood. As the game intensified, both of them danced precariously on the edge of their egos, inflating and bursting like balloons. Ethan sat in the background, sipping his coffee, watching the chaos unfold. A creeping unease washed over him as he realized that their friendship was unraveling right before his eyes. The playful competition had morphed into a battleground of ego. This was supposed to be a fun afternoon, but now thick, palpable tension simmered between the two. After a particularly aggressive maneuver from Mia, Alex let out a frustrated huff. "I can't believe you play like that." The emotional heat was rising, his words landing like rocks thrown into a still pond, rippling outward. Mia shot back an agreement. "This is chess, Alex." Her voice was steady, but beneath it lay a tremor of vulnerability, as if she feared losing not just the game, but something more significant, the respect of her friend. But the real surprise came from Ethan. He hadn't said much during the game, but his mind raced with ideas, strategies swirling like a tempest. He decided it was time to reveal his own hand. You both are so caught up in your game that you don't see what's really happening here, he said, his voice calm but commanding attention. Both Alex and Mia turned to him, their focus drawn away from their pieces. Alex asked, his cocky tone fading, replaced by genuine curiosity. You're letting your egos blind you. This game isn't just about winning, it's about understanding each other. At that moment, Ethan seemed bigger than life, as if a spotlight had found him amongst the shadows. He shifted the pieces with ease, orchestrating both a defensive and offensive maneuver that drew their attention more than either of their earlier boasts. Mia's brows furrowed. Ethan leaned forward, leaving the gravity of his words hanging in the air. Think about it, you both want to win so badly that you've lost sight of what made you friends in the first place. You've been so busy trying to outsmart each other that you forgot you're sitting here together. The cafe felt quieter in that moment, the sound of rain pattering against the window a bittersweet symphony. They both paused, letting his words settle like sediment in water. You know what, you're right, Mia finally admitted, her eyes softening. Alex looked sheepish, his bravado peeling away layer by layer. In that moment of vulnerability, Ethan took a leap of faith, revealing his own card from the mystery deck. Here's my wild card, let's reset. We play not to win, but to connect again. They burst into laughter, the sound warming the cold air around them. Just like that, the storm that threatened their friendship began to dissipate. The chessboard was still set, but now it felt different, lighter. It had shifted from a battlefield back into a playground. Mia moved her pieces with renewed intention, and Alex followed suit. The stakes might have felt high before, but now it was about shared laughter, surprise moves, and playful banter. They tossed the rules aside, letting their imaginations run wild with every turn. They made ridiculous plays, laughed at their blunders, and cheered when someone made a clever countermove. With every passing moment, the tension seeped out of the room. Outside, the rain pounded rhythmically against the cafe windows, but inside, the atmosphere was electric with camaraderie. Real friendship wasn't about winning or losing. It was about being there for one another, learning and growing together. As the game continued, they began to spot winning moves that couldn't have been deciphered in the stifling one-upmanship of before. Mia executed maneuvers that left everyone in awe, but it no longer felt like a relentless competition, it felt like exploration. Ethan set a trap for Alex, who inadvertently fell for it, but instead of anger, laughter erupted. Alex guffawed, slapping the table in delight. Even the barista, catching the infectious energy coming from their table, smiled as she passed by. The cafe, once filled with the weight of thunderous clouds, was now buzzing with laughter and warmth. Finally, the game reached its end. They leaned back, eyes twinkling, hearts racing not from the thrill of competition, but from the joy of rediscovering their friendship. Chess had once felt like an arena, but now it was a bonding experience. As they packed up, Alex looked at Ethan and said, "You know, I'm glad we played this way." Mia nodded in agreement, adding, "Yeah, you opened our eyes, Ethan." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with warmth. Perhaps it was true what they say, intelligence may not always equate to wisdom, and sometimes the quietest one can illuminate the path to understanding. Stepping outside, they inhaled the fresh, earthy scent left in the wake of the rain. The storm had passed, and so had their brief encounter with rivalry. They walked down the street side by side, arms slung over each other's shoulders, laughing and planning their next game. As they vanished into the city, giggles trailing after them like the last few drops of rain, one couldn't help but feel that they had all grown that day. They had faced the storm of their egos, only to emerge stronger like a mighty oak bent by the winds yet never broken. In a world that often judges by intelligence alone, they discovered that true understanding was the finest mastery of all. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when the air was thick with a sense of competition. In an upscale boardroom high above the bustling streets of downtown, three sharp minds gathered for what they thought would be a simple strategy meeting. They felt secure in their expertise, trusting that their experience and intellect would lead them to victory. This would be a day of triumph, or so they believed. Caroline, the project manager, had the sleek confidence of someone who had always been at the top of her game. Her dark, powerful suit matched her commanding presence. Across the table sat Marcus, the financial whiz who could recite numbers faster than anyone else could think. Finally, there was Leo, the software engineer with a penchant for out-of-the-box thinking. He often stayed in the shadows, watching and listening, but never fully stepping into the spotlight. Today's meeting was supposed to be about a new product launch, but as the three sat down, a competitive spirit filled the room, transforming their collaboration into a chess match of egos. Caroline laid out the proposal, her sharp gaze darting between her colleagues. "With my strategy, we can corner this market in no time," she declared, her voice dripping with confidence. Marcus adjusted his glasses, nodding with a smug smile. "You're forgetting one crucial factor, the budget." His voice was calm, but there was an air of confrontation lingering, like a vine creeping slowly up a trellis. As their conversation morphed into an escalating debate, Leo remained quiet. He watched as Caroline and Marcus exchanged barbs, each trying to one-up the other. Leo had an idea brewing in his mind, a groundbreaking approach to the project that could unify their strategies. But when he opened his mouth to speak, it always felt like the right moment slipped away. Caroline shot at him, her tone cutting like glass. The unspoken challenge hung heavy in the air. It stung. No one liked being dismissed, and Leo felt the weight of it. But instead of growing defensive, he took a deep breath. The quiet ones often listen the most. He knew there was a way to outmaneuver both of them, not through loud declarations, but through careful strategy. As minutes ticked by in their heated exchange, Leo absently tapped the pen on the table, his mind racing. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility, a way to bring both of their visions together while showcasing his own insights. It was risky and it required impeccable timing, but Leo had an idea that could turn the entire discussion on its head. But first, the argument reached a fever pitch. Caroline had announced her latest plan, a glitzy marketing campaign that would pull in customers like a magnet. Marcus shot back with his numbers, dissecting her idea piece by piece, abandoning any hint of collaboration. "You're not thinking long-term, Caroline. It's not sustainable." As the back and forth escalated, it was almost as if the room itself caught fire, flames of passion fueled by their pride. With every jab exchanged, that competitive energy morphed. Each one began to see the other not as allies, but as adversaries. And that's when Leo saw his opening. The room fell silent, tension crackling like static electricity. Caroline asked, brow raised, skepticism evident. Leo steadied himself, feeling the eyes of both teammates on him. He took a breath and gestured to the whiteboard filled with Caroline's colorful diagrams and Marcus's charts. "Caroline, your marketing plan is visionary, but it needs a budget that aligns with market realities. Marcus, your estimates are sound, but they lack a spark to draw in consumers." Their gazes shifted, interest peaked, but doubt still lurking on their faces. "Go on," Marcus urged, a touch of intrigue creeping into his voice. Leo elaborated. "Caroline could lead the creative vision while Marcus crafts a plan that sticks to a realistic budget." A beat passed. Caroline crossed her arms, skepticism still dancing on her face, but Marcus could see the potential. He exclaimed, both a challenge and an encouragement. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, Leo felt like he was part of the conversation, no longer on the sidelines. The spark of possibility ignited like a wildfire, and soon they began to brainstorm together. Ideas flowed, fueled not by competition, but by the thrill of collaboration. Minutes turned to hours. They bounced ideas off one another, laughter infusing the once tensed atmosphere. The project had morphed into something exhilarating, a shared vision that nobody could have predicted. Leo's insights catalyzed fresh perspectives, blending their strengths into a breathtaking mosaic of creativity. Then out of nowhere, Caroline turned to Leo, her expression softened now from doubter to believer. "I'm sorry for how I dismissed you earlier." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, this is brilliant." The acknowledgement sent a rush of warmth through Leo's chest. Here they were, a unified front, ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead. However, as the meeting wrapped up, Leo noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Caroline's earlier confidence had morphed into an unexpected wariness, as if she were sensing that Leo had outsmarted them in the most profound of ways. Days went by, and the trio worked tirelessly on their proposal. Their presentation was polished, persuasive, and beautifully detailed. They were poised for success. The day of the big pitch arrived, and their hearts raced with anticipation as they walked into the sunlit conference room filled with waiting executives. Caroline's confidence returned in full force as she launched into their presentation. She captivated the audience, painting a vivid picture of their vision. Marcus followed, detailing the budget, illustrating how their plan was both innovative and grounded. But as Leo prepared to present his technical insights, he felt the weight of their earlier conversation looming. When the time came, he stepped forward, illuminating the unique aspects he'd woven into their joint approach, how the tech behind the product would enhance user experience. His passion shone through, and soon he found himself lost in the flow of his ideas, engaging the room like never before. But halfway through his presentation, something shifted. A grimace crossed Caroline's face like a dark cloud passing over the sun. He saw her shifting in disbelief, almost frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Confusion washed over him. She had been his biggest supporter. As he wrapped up, he could feel the tension radiating off Caroline. Once the executives began to applaud, a silence hung palpably in the air as Caroline quickly asserted herself. "Thank you, everyone." But the executives exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping in. One executive asked sternly, eyebrows knitted together. A chill ran down Leo's spine. Caroline and Marcus exchanged rapid glances, and Leo felt the sinking realization that their earlier camaraderie was cracking. Their competitive streaks were surfacing again, and he could sense the fear rippling through the room. "I believe we had a solid plan before," Caroline suddenly said, her confident exterior faltering, shifting the focus back onto her. Leo's heart raced. It felt like betrayal, not just of their teamwork, but of their newfound respect. His mind raced, wondering if any of this partnership was real or if it had all been a facade. The executives nodded, their expressions unreadable, as if sensing the tension blossoming from within the trio. As they left the conference room, Leo's heart raced, confusion and disappointment swirling within him. He turned to Caroline, who wore a mask of calm that was almost unsettling. He confronted her, his voice carrying the weight of hurt. You were all in on the idea. Her eyes narrowed, fire sparking within. There it was, the insecurity. She had thought she could outsmart him even in this moment of success. Leo's mind reeled. He had believed they had come so far together, yet they were back in the familiar territory of ego. Not wanting to exacerbate the situation, he took a breath. But we worked together to create this. Marcus chimed in, let's not turn against each other. But Caroline's voice was firm, her tone dismissive. In the end, the presentation didn't go as they had envisioned. They had entered the room as a tight-knit team, ready to disrupt their industry, but eventually it turned into a game of who was smarter, who would find favor in the eyes of the executives. They thought they had outplayed the competition, but instead they had let their insecurities create a rift. Days turned into weeks as they navigated the fallout. Leo distanced himself, finding solace in his projects without the weight of alliance. Meanwhile, the dynamic between Caroline and Marcus transformed. Their previous bond grew tense, marred by unspoken resentments and scattered ambition. Eventually, they received the final verdict. It was a crushing blow, and in that small, stark conference room, overlooking the same views they'd celebrated just weeks ago, Leo realized the painful irony. They had assumed intelligence was the key to victory, but they had absolutely overlooked the importance of collaboration and trust. Months later, in another corner of the city, Leo stood before a group of aspiring tech entrepreneurs. He shared his latest vision, recounting the lessons he had learned about teamwork, humility, and the power of vulnerability. Among the crowd, Caroline and Marcus watched from the back, a blend of regret and understanding painted across their faces. Leo spoke passionately about how real success is born not from outsmarting one another, but from recognizing each person's worth in collaboration. And as they left that room, Caroline turned to Marcus. We thought we were smarter, she whispered, a shadow of their past rivalry still lingering in the air. Marcus nodded. And the hardest lesson we had to learn was that there's strength in unity. Together, they walked out into the bustling city, every step echoing the sound of new beginnings, a lesson etched into their hearts. The most intelligent minds recognized the power of working together. The shadows of pride might have loomed large, but together they learned to navigate the light. The room was thick with tension, the kind that can only build when bright minds gather for a high-stakes competition. It was a sunny Friday morning, but inside the corporate office, the atmosphere felt anything but warm. Three high achievers were squaring off in a game that would test not just their intellect, but their character. At the head of the conference table sat Rebecca, the firm's operations manager known for her ruthless efficiency. Across from her was Daniel, the marketing genius, with a sharp wink and an edge of confidence that bordered on arrogance. And then there was Emma, the new data analyst, quiet yet perceptive. She had spent months studying their strategies, patiently waiting for her moment to shine. Today's challenge centered around a new product launch. The team had decided to engage in a friendly competition, pitching their strategies for the launch. The best idea would take precedence, and the respected executives would choose the winner. The stakes, while presented as playful, were anything but trivial. Careers hung in the balance. Rebecca kicked things off. I've got a strategy that will blow you both out of the water. Her confidence radiated around the table, and Daniel leaned forward, intrigued but ready to counter. Oh, please, Rebecca, social media, that's so yesterday. This needs a fresh angle. I've devised an entire branding overhaul that leverages influencer partnerships. A sly smile crept across Daniel's face, daring Rebecca to respond. But Emma remained silent, letting their egos clash like titans while she scribbled notes. She could see the cracks forming in their strategies, the over-reliance on buzz rather than substance. You both underestimate the data, she finally said, breaking her silence. What our customers really want is transparency and value. Let's focus on meaningful engagement based on analytics. The room fell quiet, as if Emma had tossed a stone into a still pond, creating ripples of uncertainty. Rebecca and Daniel exchanged skeptical glances, and for the first time, the dominant energy shifted slightly in Emma's favor. Data, Rebecca scoffed, crossing her arms. Daniel chimed in. Exactly. His tone dripped with condescension, but Emma held her ground. She could feel the warmth of her determination rising within her. The discussions continued, with Rebecca and Daniel volleying their ideas back and forth, each convinced they were smarter than the other. Emma, however, began to formulate a plan of her own, a strategy that combined both creativity and data, fusing their passions into something powerful. As the minutes turned into an hour, the atmosphere became more charged. It wasn't just about the product anymore, it was about pride. Each subtle jab, every dismissive glance only fueled the fire. Emma's heart raced as she plotted her next move. In her mind, she could see the pitch coming together. Finally, she raised her voice again, this time with a newfound authority. What if we form an alliance, a strategy that draws from all three of us? Imagine blending creative flair with solid data insights. Their prior smugness faded, replaced by an uncertain curiosity. If Emma's proposal had hit a nerve she didn't know, but she could sense the burgeoning opportunity. Rebecca asked, wariness creeping into her tone. Exactly. Let's create a unified presentation that elevates all our ideas instead of tearing each other down, Emma encouraged, her excitement building. Daniel raised an eyebrow. That's risky. Emma took a breath. But what if it does? Think of the possibilities. The tension in the air was palpable. Emma could see what Daniel and Rebecca couldn't, the potential in collaboration. After a moment of hesitation, Rebecca sighed. All right, I'm in, she said reluctantly. Me too, Daniel nodded, albeit a bit grudgingly. As they pulled together their ideas, sparks flew. They spent hours brainstorming, weaving their thoughts into one cohesive strategy. Emma's data insights grounded Rebecca's creativity, while Daniel's marketing flair captivated their audience. Moments of triumph filled the room as they dug deeper, uncovered gaps, and refined their vision. It was exhilarating. The air was electric with newfound collaboration, each gaining a respect for the other's strengths rather than their weaknesses. They were slowly transforming into a unified force, something that could genuinely shake the market. Finally, the day of the presentation arrived. They stood together in the sleek boardroom, ready to show what they had built. From a distance, it looked like any other day, the gleaming walls reflecting the ambition they carried within. But this moment was different. As they presented their outline, confidence surged through them. Rebecca delivered the opening portion, her voice steady and powerful. Daniel followed, embodying charisma as he introduced their ideas through well-placed humor and engagement. Emma supported them with charts and facts, showing how their unified plan would not only reach customers but resonate with them on a deeper level. The executives listened closely, their attention unwavering. In that moment, Emma realized that this was more than just a project. It was a testament to their evolution as a team. As they wrapped up, the room erupted into applause, the executives visibly impressed. Emma could barely contain her exhilaration, heart racing as she beamed at Rebecca and Daniel, who shared her excitement. This was truly a moment of triumph. Then came the questions. The executives began to dig deeper, probing for the underlying logic of their approach, seeking clarity on the data. Emma responded with clarity and confidence. She felt every ounce of respect for her contributions reflected back to her. But then something shifted. Just as they thought they had sealed the deal, Daniel's face darkened, a veil of doubt taking over. The executives weren't satisfied. You've given us an interesting approach, but can we trust the data? Emma noticed Daniel's anxiety pulling at him. As the executives fired more questions, Emma tried to keep the momentum going, but Daniel seemed lost in his thoughts, disconnected from the flow. I understand the concerns, Daniel stuttered, struggling to maintain his composure. And just like that, cracks began to form in their united front. Rebecca stepped in, but the earlier confidence had shifted. Trust us, we've worked hard on this. Yet the executives sensed the tension. Emma felt a sense of vulnerability seep in. The doubt that had crept in resurfaced, and her heart sank as she realized their union was beginning to fray. The meeting ended on a note of uncertainty, but the damage was done. As they left the boardroom, their once cohesive collaboration felt far less solid. Emma's heart raced in disbelief. They had been so close. Weeks went by, and the silence hung heavy in the air. The executives decided to go with another pitch, one that seemed safe and predictable. While it was painful, Emma took it as a lesson in ego and perseverance. Daniel fell into a funk, grieving what might have been, while Rebecca seemed to lash out in frustration at their colleagues. Emma kept her head down, focusing on her work but feeling a lingering disappointment in the lost opportunity. After days of bitter reflections, the three finally met up again at a small cafe down the street from the office. Sitting across from each other, they felt the weight of the silence and unspoken regrets. Rebecca sighed heavily, breaking the ice. I thought we could work together, but I think we all got too caught up in proving ourselves. Daniel grimaced. Yeah, it's embarrassing, honestly. I thought I could handle the pressure, but I froze when things mattered most. Looking around, Emma saw the glimmer of understanding in their eyes. We didn't just fail the pitch, we failed each other. Imagine if we had been more transparent about our fears. An air of vulnerability settled over them, and suddenly they were no longer competitors, but allies seeking to rise from ashes. They spoke candidly, sharing insecurities and worries, laughing at the absurdity of their earlier rivalry. With fresh resolve, they vowed to learn from this, to grow, and to support one another moving forward. The ground that had felt so shaky became solidified in mutual respect and friendship. In the months that followed, they collaborated on other projects, slowly rebuilding their dynamics. Each small win felt monumental as they celebrated together with newfound joy, their previous failures only the stepping stones to their eventual success. Emma finally stepped into the spotlight more often, recently earning accolades for her insights. Rebecca flourished, embracing new ideas rather than forcing her own. Daniel's flair became less of a show and more of a celebration of creativity, complementing the group. Eventually, they found a project that resonated more deeply, leading to a presentation that blew the executives away. But this time, as they left the boardroom, they hugged tightly. They had not only outsmarted their competition, they'd outsmarted their earlier selves, embracing a team spirit that made them unstoppable. In the weeks and months ahead, they reveled in what they built together, a bond that went beyond skill and achievement. In the tangled web of ambition, they discovered the most profound truth of all. True intelligence lies in knowing when to uplift one another, turning individuals into an unstoppable team. Together, they could conquer anything, knowing the future was bright when united. In a small, unassuming town nestled between rolling hills and whispering trees, a fierce competition brewed beneath the peaceful surface. It was the annual science fair, an event that brought out the best and the worst in the brightest young minds. Parents buzzed around, proudly watching their children showcase their projects, while judges wandered from table to table, nodding approvingly or scribbling notes. But for 3 students, this day would not just define their grades, it would change their lives. At one corner of the gymnasium, Samantha stood with a gleam in her eye. She had always been the star student, the overachiever. Her project involved an innovative approach to renewable energy, and she was ready to dazzle the judges with her passion and brilliance. She had spent weeks polishing her presentation, rehearsing in front of her mirror until she could recite every detail flawlessly. Not far away, Tyler and Jamie were huddled around their project, a quirky but ingenious device that turned waste into energy. Tyler was the mastermind behind the mechanics, while Jamie crafted the stunning visuals that would catch everyone's eye. They thrived on friendship and banter, celebrating small victories and always egging each other on. Together, they felt unstoppable. As the judges made their rounds, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Samantha glanced over at Tyler and Jamie and felt a flicker of doubt. Were they too relaxed? Did they underestimate the competition? She shook her head, dispelling her concerns. This was her year. She was going to win, no question about it. As the judges approached her table, Samantha launched into her presentation with confidence. "Thank you for visiting my project." Her voice was steady, her hands gesturing animatedly as she described her complex hybrid solar system, a blend of solar and wind energy that was not only efficient but also affordable. But as she spoke, she caught Tyler and Jamie out of the corner of her eye, laughing and high-fiving as they set up their project. How could they be so carefree, she wondered. Didn't they realize the significance of this moment? The more she watched them, the more her confidence wavered. Next, the judges turned to Tyler and Jamie. With gusto, Tyler launched into their presentation. "Welcome to our project." His voice rang out, filled with enthusiasm, and Jamie supplemented his points with vivid visuals that played on a screen behind them. The judges leaned in, eyes brightening at the cleverness of the project. Tyler explained the mechanics, while Jamie captured the judges' attention with statistics and slick graphics. It was a perfect partnership, each bouncing off the other until the atmosphere buzzed with creativity. Watching them, Samantha's heart raced. This wasn't just a science fair, it was a battlefield of ideas. Every clever comment Tyler made felt like a direct challenge to her carefully crafted project. Did she really have what it took to win this time? As the presentations continued, the judges meticulously noted their observations, and the 3 students couldn't shake the feeling of rivalry that hung heavy in the air. Even when they exchanged polite smiles, there was an unsettling undercurrent, a competition that coiled tightly around them, pushing them toward self-doubt. After a lunch break, the results from the initial round were announced. Tyler and Jamie's teamwork had landed them a spot in the finals. Samantha's project had also made the cut. As they prepared for the final presentations, both sets of competitors knew it would come down to the wire. Each team's confidence flickered with the weight of pressure. The gymnasium filled with parents and students once again, the exciting energy crackling within the walls. As the finalists took their places, Samantha took a deep breath, reminding herself of her rehearsed lines. She could do this. Then Tyler and Jamie took the stage. They delivered their final pitch flawlessly. Their chemistry, witty banter, and infectious energy left an undeniable impact. The judges seemed enchanted, laughing at their quick jokes while nodding approvingly. Samantha felt intimidated watching the interplay. However, she wouldn't go down without a fight. When her turn came, she stepped up to the microphone, fighting to keep her composure. "My project showcases a revolutionary approach to renewable energy," she began, her mind racing as she moved through her slides. But halfway through her presentation, she noticed a couple of judges whispering to each other, their faces clouded with doubt. Panic began to claw at her gut. The moment she finished her pitch, it felt as if everyone was holding their breath. Silence hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. Finally, one of the judges spoke up, his voice calm but leaving a sting. "Samantha, while your project is ambitious and well-researched, we're concerned about its practicality for everyday consumers." Samantha's heart sank. All her hard work, all those hours spent perfecting her presentation, suddenly they felt worthless. The thought of losing to the duo across the gym ate at her. As the judges called forward the winning teams, Tyler and Jamie roared with excitement, high-fiving each other as they were announced as the winners. Samantha stood there, fighting back tears. She had poured everything into her project, but now the brightness of others outshone her. Feeling a whirlwind of mixed emotions, she slowly approached Tyler and Jamie. "Congratulations, you two. You did amazing," she managed to mutter through her disappointment. Jamie beamed, his face alive with joy. Your project was impressive, really. Samantha gave a weak smile but felt a rising anger inside. Yeah, well, you both seem pretty confident up there, she replied, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. That's when Tyler's grin faltered, sensing something deeper in her words. Hey, it was a tough competition. We all worked hard and it was just luck that got us here, he offered, trying to lift the mood. But suddenly their earlier camaraderie felt fragile. Tension hung subtly in the air and resentment began to bubble just beneath the surface. As the days passed, Samantha found it difficult to shake off the loss. Instead of accepting the defeat gracefully, her mind spiraled into darker corners, plotting her comeback. They'd outplayed her this time, but she was determined to reclaim her spot at the top. The following year's science fair rolled around, and Samantha noticed Tyler and Jamie had teamed up again. The two boys were still riding high on their previous victory, boasting about their success. But rather than feeling diminished, this ignited a fire within Samantha. She wrapped her mind around one single focus, strategy. While she dove deep into the details of her new project, she also started gathering information about Tyler and Jamie's current concepts. She studied their past projects, carefully analyzing their approaches, and began crafting her plan step by step. On the day of the science fair, the atmosphere felt electric once again. Students and families bustling around, excitement and nerves filling the air. Tyler and Jamie confidently showcased their latest invention, a compact device that generated energy from kinetic motion. They stood proud, their project splashed across the table, towering over the crowd. Samantha, meanwhile, had transformed her project into something extraordinary, a combined solar kinetic device that utilized moments of movement to harness energy, inspired by her fierce competition from the previous year. As the judges approached her table, Samantha felt steady resolve coursing through her veins. She started. With each word, she felt herself growing stronger, the regret and resentment from the past year melting away. The judges listened intently as she described innovative features, her voice infused with confidence. The momentum had shifted. When the judges reached Tyler and Jamie, they were enthusiastic but also critical. We've seen a lot of kinetic devices in the past. One of them probed. Tyler faltered for a moment, scrambling to think of an answer. As the judges moved on, Samantha could see the uncertainty etched on their faces. Unlike the previous year, she didn't feel guilty. This was part of the game. As the final presentations approached, excitement bubbled in Samantha's chest. She could feel the energy shifting, but she wasn't about to let down her guard. It was about to come down to reputation, ingenuity, and spirit. Days later, when the judges convened to announce the winners, tension wound around the gymnasium. Samantha held her breath, her pulse quickening. Today, we have two outstanding teams that have put forth remarkable projects, the lead judge began, his voice echoing in the silence. The moment hung like a fading light, each word stretched, anticipation palpable. The winner is. Joy and relief rushed through her as applause erupted around the room. Tyler and Jamie, though initially shocked, quickly joined the applause. While they might have believed they were smarter, they were outplayed by her strategic planning and tenacity. As Tyler approached to congratulate her, Samantha could see a flicker of respect in his eyes. You really did it, Samantha. Your project was incredible. Thanks, Tyler. I took a lot of inspiration from you guys, she smiled, the rivalry slowly shifting into something surprisingly friendly. As the gymnasium filled with celebration, Samantha looked around, feeling the warmth of victory wash over her. It wasn't just about winning, it was about proving to herself that she could rise above challenges, outsmarting her past through determination. In that moment, she realized that intelligence wasn't solely about being the smartest person in the room. It was about understanding how to connect the dots, learning from failures, and adapting to create something extraordinary. Samantha may have entered the competition feeling overshadowed, but she emerged transformed, not just an individual who outplayed her opponents, but a student who found strength and resilience. The experience had etched a mark deep within her, one that would guide her for years to come. And as the day waned, the echoes of laughter and celebration rang through the halls, a sweet reminder of the intricate dance of competition and growth. The playground of knowledge was ripe for the taking, and in that moment, victory wasn't just about trophies, it was about the journey of becoming her best self. It was a humid summer day when the annual chess tournament kicked off at Maplewood High. The gym was packed with students, parents, and faculty buzzing with excitement. Among the crowd stood three of the brightest minds at the school, all vying for the title: Alex, the reigning champion; Jenna, the ambitious newcomer; and Ryan, who had always played in the shadows but not without a sharp intellect behind those calm eyes. The atmosphere crackled with tension, the scent of popcorn and the sound of clacking chess pieces filling the air. Laughter floated in a mixture with the sound of low whispers as spectators made bets on who would emerge victorious. For Alex, this was more than just a game. It was the culmination of years of practice and strategy. He wore a tailored shirt with sleeves rolled up, confidence radiating like sunlight, while Jenna, dressed in vibrant colors, bounced on her heels, filled with nervous energy despite her bravado. Ryan, standing off to the side, had a slight smile on his face, a quiet confidence stemming from his own strategic mind. As the tournament started, the first few rounds flew by. The trio moved effortlessly through their matches, each player trying to gauge their opponents, deciphering the intricacies of their game styles. Alex played with aggressive confidence, while Jenna's excitement translated to bold, unpredictable moves on the board. Ryan, however, took a different approach. He played methodically, biding his time as he watched the others clash with flashy tactics, waiting for mistakes. By the time the semifinals arrived, tensions were high. Alex faced off against Jenna, and the atmosphere felt electric. Jenna quipped, a playful grin on her face. "I'm just looking forward to a good game," he replied with a smirk, but beneath that, the stakes loomed. This wasn't just about winning, it was about reputation, and both of them knew it. As the pieces moved back and forth, the room felt as if it had narrowed down to just the two of them. Each move echoed on the polished floor, every click of plastic pieces resounding as the audience leaned in. Jenna played valiantly, making unexpected sacrifices that surprised everyone, even Alex. But just when it seemed she might take him down a notch, she made a fateful mistake, a bold pawn push that exposed her queen. The audience gasped, and Alex seized the moment. With a swift and calculated move, he captured her queen and felt the wave of triumph. Jenna's face dropped, disappointment flooding her features as the echoes of cheers rang in his ears. "Good game," Alex said, his voice laced with an unexpected edge of empathy. Jenna nodded, trying to mask her frustration. "Next year I'll come back stronger," she declared, not ready to admit defeat fully. With bewildering rapidity, the championship was set, Alex versus Ryan. As they took their seats, the atmosphere shifted again. The crowd buzzed, eager to see how this matchup would unfold. Ryan remained calm, as if unfazed by the growing pressure. Alex, still riding high from his last victory, leaned back, a grin spreading across his face. Alex taunted, a flicker of arrogance in his eyes. "Let's just play," Ryan replied, his voice steady like a still pond. The initial moves were predictable, but as the game advanced, Ryan's strategy began to unfold. He challenged Alex's tactics, countering his every move with surprising depth and sharp insight. The crowd grew restless, whispers echoing as Ryan circled a strategy that seemed to confound the reigning champion. As the middle game progressed, each player became absorbed in a dance of intellect. Moves became calculated and cautious. The chessboard transformed into a battlefield, pieces marching toward an uncertain fate. But as Alex pushed for the offensive, he began to feel an inkling of doubt creeping into his mind. Time and again, Ryan countered with ease, anticipating his every thrust. With the clock ticking down, tension reached a fever pitch. Alex's mind raced, but panic began to set in. The moves once so clear became clouded with self-doubt. With a casual flick of his wrist, Ryan managed to corner Alex's king, a crucial moment that sent ripples of disbelief through Alex's mind. He sat back, running through the possible scenarios, trying to outthink Ryan, who had been playing the long game all along. Moments ticked away, sweat gathered at Alex's brow as he struggled to maintain his composure. He recalled a lesson he learned from his mentor, that chess is not just about the pieces but the psychology of your opponent, and now he was tangled in a web of his pride. "I see your game," Alex finally said, an attempt to regain control. He executed a brilliant maneuver, sacrificing a piece to expose Alex's remaining defense. The crowd gasped once more, their whispers amplifying in disbelief as Alex sat, stunned. In the final moments of the match, he scrambled for a solution, but there was none. In a heartbreaking, swift series of moves, Ryan closed in for the win. With a single move, the match ended. "Checkmate," Ryan declared. A wave of silence poured over the gymnasium, and the judges exchanged glances, finally acknowledging the upset. Alex's world collapsed at that moment. His title slipped through his fingers like grains of sand. Ryan's face lit with victory. He had done what others deemed impossible. The reality of his victory settled heavy. He had outplayed the reigning champion, who had always seemed untouchable. But as the applause echoed in the halls, Alex felt anger and embarrassment swirled into a confusing mix. Distraught, he watched as Ryan celebrated with friends, the trophies glinting in his grasp. Alex reflected on everything he had taken for granted: his experience, his overconfidence, and the lack of appreciation for the unexpected depths of his opponent's strategy. But while Alex felt crushed, it ignited a spark within him. Losing opened his eyes, he realized that this wasn't just about the prize. It was about learning humility and truly understanding the game he loved. Days turned to weeks, and as summer unfolded, Alex took time to reflect. He watched Ryan from the sidelines, taking notes, studying his moves and contrasting strategies. He immersed himself in literature about psychology and game theory, learning how to anticipate an opponent's thoughts. In what felt like a reversal of fortune, he noticed a change. Ryan's victory was not so easily replicated. He struggled in subsequent matches. Alex watched him crumble under pressure, realizing that Ryan's earlier success had merely painted over his own uncertainties. As the new school year approached, whispers floated through the hallways. This year's tournament would be held in just a few months. It was a dance of anticipation, the competition looming over them both. Determined to prepare himself, Alex embraced a new regime. He began seeking out sparring partners to challenge him and took lessons on maintaining composure under stress. He felt a transformation stirring inside him. The loss had awakened a drive that had previously lay dormant. Interestingly, Ryan didn't seem nearly as unshakable anymore. Alex noticed how his former rival began to falter, each defeat pressing down on him. With every clash, the pressure enveloped Ryan like a collapsing wave. He was losing his earlier confidence, spiraling into self-doubt. As the tournament approached, Alex felt a mix of anticipation and compassion. He remembered the intensity of their prior matches and how the taste of defeat had once lingered bitterly in his mouth. What Ryan didn't realize was that Alex was no longer looking just to win. He wanted to explore the game, respect the craft, and understand that true intelligence resides in adaptability and growth. On the day of the tournament, Alex entered the gymnasium with a composed yet fierce focus. The tension in the air buzzed with excitement. Students gathered around tables, speculation swirling like a storm. As the round commenced, he fought through his matches with unwavering strategy, absorbing every lesson, every energy of the room. When he finally faced Ryan again in the finals, emotions tangled with excitement and anxiety. Ryan looked uneasy as they squared off, the past victory fading under the weight of expectations. Alex asked, a glimpse of his old confidence returning. For a moment, Ryan looked like the king on the board, commanding yet unsure. I guess, he replied, apprehensive. As they played, Alex recalled each of Ryan's tendencies and reactions from their last match. He stayed calm, countering Ryan's aggressive moves with calculated defense while watching for openings. The experience he had gained sharpened his anticipation of Ryan's strategy, guiding him to stay one step ahead. Their match unfolded like a gripping thriller, moves exchanged in a delicate dance, the room thick with tension. Ryan threw his best defenses at Alex, dashing his pieces forward in an attempt to dominate, but Alex had come prepared. Tables began to turn. He countered with precision, holding back any sign of panic. Just as he felt victory slipping within reach, Alex noticed something. Behind Ryan's fierce exterior, doubt lingered, threatening to unravel him. It became apparent when he hesitated, an internal struggle painting his expressions. Seizing that vulnerability, Alex found strength. With a burst of clarity and focus, he executed a decisive move, one that maneuvered Ryan's pieces into a vulnerable position. Again and again, he danced around the board, overtaking significant pieces until Ryan was trapped. Checkmate, Alex said calmly, a sense of respect echoing in his voice. Gasps filled the room and applause erupted. Ryan stood still for a moment, absorbing the weight of it. What had begun as rivalry transformed into mutual understanding. With a supportive nod, Alex approached him. Good game, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan muttered, a faint smile replacing his earlier stunned expression. Alex chuckled lightly. We all do. As they walked off together, the crowd dispersed, their laughter fading into the summer's warm embrace. In that moment, both competitors understood a profound truth. While they had engaged in fierce competition, the true journey lay in the connection of minds, the respect earned through play, and the humility born from growth. The chessboard was a battlefield, but even amidst the contrast of victory and defeat, Alex realized that the true victory lay within the journey itself. The chess players intertwined in a cycle that spun beyond titles and trophies. The art of adapting and learning made their minds sharper, but above all, the bond forged through challenges led them to become better, stronger players in life. In the dance of chess and beyond, intelligence transcended the game. It became the fabric of their evolution. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the alley as Jake adjusted his collar, his heart pounding with anticipation and anxiety. He was about to meet with Charlie and Annika, the brightest kids in school, after days of heated online debates. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, and the air crackled with the thrill of imminent confrontation. They had decided to settle their ongoing rivalry in a way that was far more dramatic than usual, a game of strategy and cunning. But this wasn't just any game. This was an underground poker match held in a dimly lit back room at a local cafe. Annika had touted her skills as a card shark, her charisma blended with an undeniable cunning. Charlie, known for his impressive analytical mind, saw this as an opportunity to prove he wasn't just the geeky kid with a penchant for chess and numbers. He was dressed sharply, eyes glinting with that competitive intensity that made him so formidable. Jake, for all his insecurities, had spent hours studying every poker handbook he could find, desperate to hold his own. As he approached the cafe, the musty smell of burnt coffee mixed with the sweet scent of pastries wafted through the air. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. They thought they would outsmart him, play him like a fool, but he was determined to show them he could be just as sharp. Inside, the small room was crowded yet intimate, the sound of shuffling cards and murmurs filling the space. As Jake entered, he caught sight of Annika leaning back in her chair, a sly smile on her face. Charlie sat across from her, eagerly listening, his eyes flicking between her and the deck of cards in front of them. "Hey, champ," Annika greeted him, laughter lacing her voice like syrup. Jake forced a grin, squaring his shoulders. The stakes were high for everyone. The winner would take home not only cash but the bragging rights that came with it, a title they wanted to wear like a crown. Jake had always been the underdog in their trio. The cool kids often overlooked him, but today he yearned to shift the narrative. They settled in with careful intimidation, the dealer shuffling cards and spreading them across the table like a battleground. As the game began, each player carefully laid down their poker face. Flirting with danger was the name of the game. Charlie and Annika exchanged knowing glances, revealing an unspoken bond of strategy that Jake felt he might not be able to penetrate. Hand after hand unfolded, and the chips stacked and dwindled like tides against the shore. Annika played with gusto, her confidence spilling over in showy raises that often left Jake on edge. Charlie, however, remained calculated, betting low but steady, waiting for the opportune moment to pounce. And there Jake was, trying to decipher not just their cards but the motives behind their actions. Then came the pivotal moment when Jake finally caught a hand he could work with, a king and queen of hearts. The adrenaline pulsed through him like electricity as he felt a potential winning hand flow through his fingers. With a steady baritone, he decided to raise the stakes. "I'll put in 50, he said, a flicker of confidence sparking in his eyes. The room fell silent, and he could feel the weight of their gazes, assessing him as if he were a puzzle to be solved. Annika smirked. "You must think you have a good hand, Jake, but let's be real, this is where it all crumbles." "Me too," Charlie said, his demeanor cool, safe in the knowledge that he had something even better. Jake's heart sank momentarily, but he had come this far and there was no backing down now. The game continued, and Anne and Charlie's bravado tightened around him like a vice. A new card came up, an ace of hearts. The stakes had risen higher than he'd imagined. Jake sensed an opening, a shift in the atmosphere. He could feel the excitement morphing into sweat-soaked palms. After a careful calculation, he upped his bet again. "I'll raise you 100, Jake proclaimed, trying to mask his uncertainty with bravado. Annika raised an eyebrow, her playful demeanor wavering slightly as she saw the determination in his eyes. "You know I've got you beat, right?" Charlie remained quiet, his eyes narrowing as he studied Jake. "I'll fold," he finally said, tossing his cards away, leaving a trail of palpable tension behind him. Jake felt the adrenaline surge through him. Could it be? Was this a potential win hanging in the balance? As they revealed their cards, Jake's fingers trembled in anticipation. Annika had a 3 of hearts, a 4 of hearts, and a 5 of hearts. The flush reveal sent shockwaves through him, but he held fast, revealing his king and queen. "High card wins," he said, steeling himself. But when Annika's flush was laid out, Jake felt roots of defeat threatened to pull him under. Annika exclaimed, the triumph radiating off her. The rush of crushing disappointment seeped in, but he held onto the thrill of the game. But as they pushed through more hands, Jake's losses turned into gains with steady focus. The game began to twist and turn, each round turning the tides in unexpected ways. Crowds swirled around them, eyes glued to the table. The stakes had intensified, and Jake saw openings that he hadn't before. By the time they entered the final round, the atmosphere was electric. Jake was down to just a few chips left, the weight of desperation heavy on his mind. Annika and Charlie exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. They were enjoying the moment, a wolf pack toying with their prey. "Let's make this interesting," Annika said, leaning back in her chair, a hint of arrogance coloring her tone. Jake felt his heart race. The tension hung thick in the air like a storm cloud. "I'll call," he retorted, ignoring the fear that clawed at his gut. "Me too," Charlie declared, flipping his cards dramatically. They both revealed their hands, and suddenly Jake's world shrank to nothing but the table, the low hum of the crowd fading into a light buzz in the background. The dealer flipped over the final community card, a 10 of hearts. Jake's breath hitched in his throat. He hadn't just been watching, he had been playing tactically. He sensed a chance, a shimmer of light through the gloom of heads lost in the clouds of their confidence. He glanced at their faces. Had they overplayed their hands, blinded by their own smarts? Jake revealed his cards, 2 tens and a couple of royal hearts. He stole a glance at Annika as her expression darkened, a hint of disbelief creeping onto her face. 2 pair, huh, not bad, she conceded reluctantly, revealing her set. The room gasped, and a frisson of tension rippled through the crowd. Despite his hope steadily dimming, Jake felt something different tugging at his instincts. He caught a glimpse of Charlie, who had sat quietly, and a sudden epiphany rattled against Jake's skull. Charlie hadn't bet so much from arrogance, he had been strategically holding back. Jake asked, heart pounding. Charlie flipped over his cards. "I've got a full house," he said coolly, laying down a 10 and 2 kings. The room erupted into cheers for Charlie, but Jake felt a flicker of insight. As the hype exploded around them, Jake didn't feel defeated. No, he felt invigorated. He felt a shift, an understanding of the game that transcended mere numbers. It was a dance, a mental battle far beyond the surface, and deep down he felt alive. The laughter and chatter around him faded as he looked straight at Charlie. "You may have won this round, but you should have watched me more closely. The game isn't just about cards." That spark of realization hung in the air, and as the dust of the game settled, a strange bond broke between them. He saw Charlie's eyes widen, recognition flashing across his face. You think you've outsmarted me, Jake. Jake leaned forward, adrenaline coursing through his veins. I think you've been so focused on your own strategy that you missed the bigger picture. And as that moment hung in the air, something shifted dramatically in the room. The dynamics of the rivalry had changed. Jake had risen from the ashes. The stakes weren't merely about this match. It was a deeper lesson, a call to awaken. With every chip, every play, and every spoken word, Jake was evolving. But just then, before Jake could bask in the glow of hope and triumph, the cafe door swung open with a loud crash. Everyone turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, about to break the fragile tension that had taken weeks to build. And there stood Emma, a fire in her eyes, clutching an envelope filled with secrets. I need to speak to all of you, now. The room went silent, anticipation hanging thick like smoke in the air. Jake felt adrenaline surge once more, heart racing, mind whirling. The stakes had just doubled, and this was just the beginning of a game far beyond cards. What would they learn next? What would unravel before them as the next chapter awaited? One thing was clear: the game was on, and this time everyone was playing for keeps.